What's up, Leafs fans, NHL fans, hockey fans alike? There has been big news coming out recently after Nathan MacKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche spoke out regarding the All-Star Game, and now we have known that this has been something that is a problem. I don't know if it's been a problem yet. It's just always been considered somewhat of a joke in the eyes of hockey fans. If you're a fan of another sport and you look in on the NHL All-Star Game, it's something that you don't really understand too much, and it kind of makes sense. And I think it kind of leads to part of the problem here. And the entire purpose of the All-Star Game is to showcase the league's best talent. And where I even go with that and tying into people who are fans of other sports or people who are watching hockey for the first time, if I go to the NBA All-Star Game and I turn it on my TV, I know that every single player in there, barring injury, is one of the best players in the NBA. Now I flip on the NHL All-Star Game, and this is the first time that I have ever watched hockey in my life. I'm going to be under the impression that these are the best players in the league. And yet that's not how the NHL All-Star Game operates. And Nathan MacKinnon made that very clear with his comments earlier this week, stating, this is not the participation game. This is an all-star game, which I think sums it up perfectly because that's kind of what the NHL has turned this into. And Goody, I mean, all around, like, what is your takeaway on the all-star game? I know it's not something hockey fans or Leafs fans in particular or something are overly excited about, and it doesn't make or break the year for us, but it still has just become a joke of an event.
Yeah, they're doing too much. They're definitely doing too much. They want to brand and expand, and they've done a great job doing that. But you're at the point where hockey's growing in places it wasn't before. And I'm not saying the job's finished. It's definitely not. But let's revert to something more traditional to sports and making all-stars feel like all-stars again. If anything, that's a better way to brand the game. And I get it. Some places like Arizona might not have one. Or I get how there is issues with how the growth is seen with the all-star game. But the reality is what Nathan MacKinnon's saying is completely true. It's a participation game at this point. Now that you have 32 teams in the league, I mean, it just disadvantages really talented teams like the Leafs, like Tampa Bay, like Boston, who deserve to have multiple all-stars, but can't get them submitted to the game. So I think it's definitely something that needs to change. I mean, the best thing ever that happened to the All-Star Game was John Scott getting to go. But on a real note, let's reserve it for the spots that actually are deserving. And right now, there's many guys in there that should not be. And I think that you got to value winning a little bit in the criteria too. Not too much. I think it is an individual measure, but you can put that a little bit into the equation. Like if there's 100%. A tiebreaker between two players, go with the better team, reward winning, reward being elite. That's where I'm standing on it, man. I want it just to go back to the way it was a long time ago. Like you're saying, it actually meant something back in the day. I want to see it simplified.
Well, it sucks too, because I mean, at this point, yeah, for us to look at it, you and I can easily break this down and say, why is Steven Stamkos, Nazem Kadri, Mikko Rantanen, the guys who are 5th, 6th, and 7th in NHL scoring, not playing in the All-Star Game? But it goes beyond that, and it's one thing for you and I, fans of the game, to look at it and say, wow, these guys should be All-Stars, they should be in it. But part of where the problem is stemming from now is that it doesn't even matter to NHL players whether they get in or not, because they acknowledge what Nathan MacKinnon is saying about it being a participation game. It means nothing. It means nothing to the players. It means nothing to the fans. It's whoop-de-doo, another thing to watch on TV here. That's kind of what it's come to. And you look at the NBA, your level or your number of all-star games contributes to the quality of career that you have. When you retire, when you're being considered for the Hall of Fame, how many times was he in the All-Star Game? Here's one thing. You know who is dying to go to the NBA All-Star Game every single year? LeBron James.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely accurate.
Like, Rudy Gobert cried when he wasn't elected an All-Star.
It means something.
It holds so much value to them. And in the NHL, guys actively avoid the game. The NHL had to put a penalty in place to suspend you for intentionally skipping the game just to try to get you to go to it. That's how much these guys don't care about it.
I don't know how the NHL can be so tone deaf as well. Like, I don't understand how the people who operate this league on a day-to-day basis draw up the blueprint for All-Star Weekend and continue to think, yeah, this is the way it should be. Like, it is just absolutely, it's idiotic. I don't understand why they won't reward the guys who deserve it most, because at this point, it doesn't matter to the players. And I understand it's for the fans. But at the end of the day, if your team's sending a guy that shouldn't be there anyways, how much pride do you really feel? If you're a true hockey fan that knows what's going on, chances are you got a pretty realistic read on whether or not your guy deserves to be there. So if you're sitting there watching the All-Star game, as a hockey fan does, knowing your guy doesn't really belong, I mean, if anything, you're getting clowned. I just don't see it as a real big source of pride. And I want the players to own it and to be mentioned at Hall of Fame speeches the same way it's carried in the NFL. Sorry, I almost said the NFL. Similar situation there, though, but the
with
NBA
Pro Bowls,
matters so much.
Yeah.
And it is kind of baffling that the NHL hasn't adjusted and just simplified things.
And part of it, too, is, I mean, you look at it and the game itself doesn't have to mean anything. That's not what you and I are saying. The actual physical game, no matter what happens, let's be very honest, it's not going to matter. And it really doesn't in the grand scheme of things. They're still going to go and they're going to float around, and it's like nobody cares. Nobody cares that that's happening. What needs to matter is the value of being an all-star. And that's what needs to come back to the NHL. And you don't even have to look that far to say, oh, wow, well, at what point did it matter? Gretzky, Mario, Yager, like these guys cared about being an all-star, going to the All-Star game. And I mean, it's a different time, but they cared about winning the All-Star games too and putting up crazy numbers of points. Like for them, it was important.
It should be East versus West, because I feel like that's a little bit more of where
100%.
the pride comes from. When you get it down to divisions and it's like a whole tournament, I get it. You get to watch more hockey. It's more fun. It's
a one-game elimination.
That. What was that?
It's a 1-game 3-on-3 elimination.
Do they not play like a round robin to get down to a final though?
I was certain it was like just one game, and then I don't know. Maybe I'll have to double check it.
Well,
but
there you go. This is how disconnected I am with the All-Star game right now. I thought it was kind of like a tournament format, but doing it by division, just like it doesn't make sense. Go head to head with the conferences. It's so much more appealing that way. You get more sense of pride from the players and even the fans who this is all about. I think it's a no doubter, man. And once I assume you're clarifying right now what the rules are for the All-Star weekend and how the teams are set up.
Yeah.
Okay, after you figured that out, we got to go through who's going to get in on this last man voting. We'll at least do it for the Atlantic Division, because I'm looking at Brad Marchand and saying, how could it not be him? But then again, you got Steven Stamkos right there, and then the Leafs have William Nylander. There's a lot of questions to be asked here, Phil. But do you have an answer on what's going on with All-Star Weekend?
Yeah. So the first two, so it's 3 games, and that's what it is. The first 2 20-minute games will be the semifinal round. The Central Division All-Stars play the Pacific Division, and the Metro plays the Atlantic. The winners play each other in the championship game.
Right. So it's like individual games, but it's the length of a period.
Yeah. So it's East splits their teams, and they go 1v1. The winner of that in a 20-minute game plays the winner of the other side in the final. So you get 3 games.
So a little mini tournament. I don't know. It's got like some sort of like jingle and appeal to it. But man, just go back to the Eastern versus the West.
But even if they do that, yeah, no, I agree with you. But even if they don't go to that and they just stick with the format as is, sure, whatever. But it's the entire getting in and being the players that are in it that's ridiculous. And what they kind of changed it to, why they changed it, is because they said they needed representation of everybody. They needed every team in there, and they were trying to grow the game, and they wanted to make sure that fans of markets with those players could have something to root for, and then you could see players from other markets into it. Well, you know who really doesn't give a crap that they're players in the All-Star game this year? Fans of the Montreal Canadiens. You think they're cheering, like riding in the streets about how excited they are that Nick Suzuki with 19 points this year is playing in the All-Star game, or Buffalo Sabres fans are doing donuts in the parking lots because Rasmus Dahlin at a -13 and their terrible Buffalo Sabres is getting represented at the All-Star game? No, they don't care.
No, not at all. And that's hilarious. Well, the Montreal example is so true, because Montreal knows hockey. It's like Toronto. They live and breathe this stuff. So the same people that would, in theory, be excited to see representation, they aren't dumb. They know that he's there to be a representative of their team, not because he deserved it. So I just don't think there's any pride in that whatsoever. And just to rewind a little bit to what we're saying about the divisional setup, I think it's easier to over-represent teams in this divisional setup than it would be East versus West, because If you just have an Atlantic division, I get it. It's hard to load up on the Bruins, the Lightning, and the Leafs. But if you have East versus West, I feel like it's a little bit more discreet. I get how maybe like, okay, if we're doing divisions, we got to get one from everybody. But if you do it conference wise, it's not as glaring of a mistake, and you can just really do it the way it should be. But I digress.
Yeah, and then the other part of it where I kind of think is kind of one of the final points on the topic is in the NBA, one thing that they have figured out really, really well, and they've kind of set themselves apart with it, is the skills competition. Yeah. And I got to be honest, the NHL skills competition is a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of fun to watch those guys do that. But where it turns into like just being kind of dumb is that you can only be in the skills competition if you're a guy who's in the All-Star game. The NBA isn't like that. The NBA, you don't have to be an All-Star to participate in the dunk competition. And that draws excitement to those events. Why would I watch? Now, this year is kind of different because I do look at some of the guys in this list, and they are actually some of the fastest skaters in the league. But just so this year kind of sets aside as an example, and I mean, it's poor choosing for this one by myself. But I mean, why would I want to watch Connor McDavid and Kyle Connor face off against guys who are nowhere near as fast as them just because they happen to be the next fastest guys in the All-Star game? Like, if there's another guy out there in the league that you go, man, that guy is one of the best skaters, put him in the fastest skater. Like, just put them out there. Who cares if they're an All-Star or not?
No, I agree completely. I think it comes from the fact that the NBA is so specialized. Like, you have guys like Joe Harris who just pull up and shoot threes. Like, you're going to want him there in the 3-point competition. Whereas in hockey, you need the more well-rounded game. But what you're saying is still completely factual. To just pull from the pool that you have at All-Star Weekend, I mean, it's not really speaking to the full skill of the game. Like, I feel as though Trevor Zegras is not going to the he's not going to the All-Star Weekend, but that's someone that could be pretty fun to watch in a skills competition. 100%. You know, that's a way to brand it. That's a way to get guys who are great for the camera and the reputation of the league, but aren't necessarily all-stars involved. And the fact that they limit it to the all-star pool, which now, like, I guess interesting enough, they sort of tailored to the skills competition. I don't know. We're somewhere weird in the middle here, but I think that following in the NBA's footsteps would definitely be a wise move for the NHL. But I'm still dumbfounded how they're so tone deaf to what's going on. Like, this has been sort of a recurrent issue in the NHL where no one's ever happy with the All-Star game, like, ever. Yeah,
no, you're right. It's almost like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I completely understand that. But here's the other point that I kind of like can tail off of that on is if you want the representation of the other guys, okay, maybe, and I mean, because you talked about them, it's just kind of sticking out in my mind, but okay, maybe Anaheim has a bad year and they don't really have anybody. But Trevor Zegras goes and he's in the shootout competition. There's your Anaheim representation there at the weekend. Now you get more guys going to the weekend. You create more buzz because even if a guy is at the All-Star Weekend, he doesn't have to be in the game. Now you just have more players there. You have more players. Guys are going to want to be around that scene because it is the best players. It is some of the biggest names. Like, Patty Kane's not in it this year. And now, mind you, it's not like he's having an extremely good year, but you wouldn't want to see Patty Kane in the breakaway competition, the shootout competition? I would. I would be dying to see that. Like, he's one of the most electric guys who's been in it before. Why wouldn't you want to see them there?
No, it's true. You make a great point about the skills competition. Like, obviously there's some differences in the nature of the sport, but I think it would only benefit the NHL, especially from that representative standpoint. It's like, you're spitting the truth here, Philly, that if you want your team represented, opening it up with a skills competition would completely be the way to do it, because then you don't have people feeling snubbed in the actual All-Star game. Yeah, it's a happy medium, and it's just better for the sport and the weekend overall.
Well, and my final point, and this is full ripoff of NBA. Like, I mean, the other ones were kind of copying it as well, but this one is just going to be so honest, is just blatant ripoff. Put a Young Guns game or put a Rising Stars game. Because that is a cool way to showcase up-and-coming talent who may not get represented in the actual All-Star game itself.
Man, I love that idea. And hockey's the sport to do it with, too. I mean, the European presence in hockey now is insane. right? Like you look at Germany, even as a place that's just pumping out prospect after prospect.
Yeah.
Having a Team North America. The last time we saw Team North America together with a young age group was quite cool. You
Yeah.
remember McDavid and Matthews together doing that yearly at the All-Star Weekend. Well, I mean, that would right there get a
And
ton of
there's enough
viewership.
of them. There's enough of them, right? Like it's not like you're dying for it. Like there's those guys that are there who can participate. I mean, you even look at Detroit. They've got Moritz Seider there, who's just an incredible defenseman for them playing, who could be in this game playing for the European team. And then Zegras on the North American side.
Stützle and
Yeah, Stützle, like you pile these guys into the game. Stützle's not in the All-Star game. He could easily play in the Rising Stars game. And now, you know what? That is one game where I truly do think that it would have a little bit of jam. Because I think those guys would have a little bit of, hey, we want to beat these guys. We want to beat the Europeans. We want to beat the North Americans. I think that could have a little bit more excitement than the lofty 3-on-3 that Leo Komarov played in 5 years ago or whatever.
no, exactly. And man, think about the chip that these European players all playing together, all young in the league would have facing Team North America. Because I mean, it's one thing to be representing East versus West in your conferences, but to represent it in the world at a game, I mean, I feel like Europeans, and rightfully so, they think that they're right there with North American hockey these days. And that'd be a cool way to sort of track the progression as it's entering the league. Phil, like, I hope someone from the NHL sees this video because we've just proposed so many alternatives that would boost viewership, boost the reach of the game, and then also correct the actual format of selecting all-stars. You can do that the way the NBA, I mean, the NBA is completely right on with how they've been doing it. So it would feel weird to maybe just, you know, word for word tear a page out of their book. But I mean, it's a copycat world, and what they've done has worked tremendously.
But yeah, why wouldn't you look at something else that's having success that is looked at as a, I mean, I can't really think of the word, but like a highly regarded event, and you're struggling to get Sidney Crosby to want to go to the game, to get some of your best players into this game. You have to put in a penalty if guys skip it. Why would you not look at something successful and say, hey, let's try that? Like it's not like they're gonna be like, no, NHL, you can't do what we're doing. They're not gonna care. Like, why would they not? And the thing is too, you and I are not even sitting here saying they need to try in the All-Star game. That's not what it's about. Nobody's going to care. No matter what, if you have the best players, if you have the worst players, that game's going to be a bogus game because no one wants to get hurt. And that's just the way it is. I don't care. Keep 3-on-3 if you wanted to keep 3-on-3. Do whatever. But you need the best players there. And right now, as it stands, that's not what they have.
Yep, it's definitely not. And when you look at these snubs from it, you can tell that they don't value winning, and they go as far to value participation from everybody. I mean, we've just been rehearsing the points here. It's like it's becoming a big issue, and it's been like this for a little too long. I really hope that they are willing to tear a page out of the NBA's book pretty soon, because we've proposed so many good alternatives just in this video alone. And I got to say, the coolest one is definitely the Rising Stars game. I think the NHL needs that.
And just, I even just think like that opening the weekend off, that's a way to get the young guys around the older vets. You get the young guys, you get a guy in there who gets to meet face to face Alex Ovechkin, who's been his idol for his whole life. And as much as it is weird to think about, yeah, they're both in the NHL for sure, but some of these guys, looking at Sidney Crosby, looking at Alex Ovechkin, these are guys that they grew up admiring the way that they played, wanting to be like them. You get to go and be in the All-Star game with them. Like, that's something that's cool for them. You get to hang around the best players in the league. Guys will start to want to be there. It will create an atmosphere of guys wanting to be there. And just kind of, you even just think about it right now. With the way that it stands, what is it? I mean, I'm not going to add up on the thing, but like, you're basically sitting at like 32 to 35 player, I guess like 36 players, almost, whatever, what the last man is, of guys who are going to the game. Well, you open it up and you put like 50 guys there because of the skills competition, because of the Rising Stars. You're creating an event of 50 plus guys where it just creates a fun atmosphere of people being there.
And watch the NHL say that that's too many with COVID going on. Like, I just feel like that's the excuse we're going to get. It's going to be like, you know what? It's going to be like a good 3 to 4 years, even from this point, until no one thinks about COVID again.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like the NHL, like, that's a lot of money and changes. And we can't do that during the COVID era. I mean, 50 people at All-Star Weekend. Come on.
Yeah.
I want it to
You're
happen,
right.
Philly. I just feel like I see the future coming at me, but hopefully they can do something about it soon, because I think there are so many feasible things that can reasonably lift the amount of exposure and fun and pride in All-Star Weekend. That's the important part.
Yeah, no, completely agree with you, but I mean, we'll see as it goes along if the NHL decides to make any kind of changes. As it stands right now, they won't be in there. It's unfortunate because currently there's guys missing out on this opportunity like Steven Stamkos, Nazem Kadri, Mikko Rantanen, and you even look at goalies. Igor Shesterkin, third in goals against average, second in save percentage, third in shutouts, and he's missing out because a guy like Cam Talbot or Thatcher Demko has to get in there ahead of him. It's just a little bit ridiculous, and it is hand in hand with what Nathan MacKinnon said. It is a participation game with the way that it's being run. It's turned into a bit of a mockery of a situation. It's not the All-Star Game. It's called the All-Star Game, but it's not All-Stars in that game.
Man, it's not. And I'm happy that MacKinnon said something, because hockey players, they take it on the chin, right? They're good with authority. They're media trained. They know to, just do their job. They say in the interview, I just went out and did my job.
Yeah.
It'd be helpful to have more outspoken guys who are pissed off, like Nathan MacKinnon right now, seeing his teammates snub, to step up and say, hey, it's about the fans, but this is a player run thing that we're doing. It's about recognizing skill on the ice. And as the players, we want it to be that way. Yeah. So I'm happy that Nathan MacKinnon's spoken up, but some more big voices, I think, should come out and say something.
Well, Leafs fans, there you have it. NHL fans, if you guys tune in as well, we appreciate you guys for watching this video. Let us know how you guys would fix the All-Star Game. We're not even looking to make the game itself more competitive, but what would you do? What rules would you change to draw more of the top players in the league to the game? What can the NHL do to draw those guys in there and actually incentivize them to play in the game and add value to being named an All-Star? Let us know in the comments. Like this video, comment below, send this to your friends, share this around, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Goody and I are on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so every subscriber along the way, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching along. We look forward to seeing you guys in the future.
I got one more question for you, man, before we sign off. Maybe someone's already closed the video because we're doing our sign off, but for those who stuck around, I got another reward debate for them right now. Okay, Brad Marchand, I think, has a good chance to get in this last minute vote for the Atlantic Division.
Yeah.
Do you think the fact that he basically just crapped on what the NHL did with the Olympics is playing a role here? Do you think that the fact that he spoke out against the NHL, plus he's a rat, like, are they looking at Brad Marchand and be like, okay, he's top 6 in points, but let's snub him because he's been on us recently?
The NHL is just like deleting votes. They're coming in for Marchand. They're just deleting votes.
Oh my! Is it all fan voting, or is there an element as well of? I thought there was still the executive votes as well.
I actually genuinely don't know. I couldn't answer that for you. I wish I did know, because that would make that proposed question by you so much funnier if we knew that the NHL had any sort of say. The only reason I would think that they don't is because John Scott was allowed in the game. Like, you got to think that the NHL would have just... Remember that they tried to create a rule that said that if you're in the AHL, you couldn't be in it. And then they rebutted and were like, yeah, well, he was in the NHL at the time he was voted in. And then it became a whole thing. So I would think that they probably don't have that kind of leeway over it. But yeah, I could just see them sitting there and they're just deleting fan votes as soon as Marchand's name comes in, because they're so angry with what he said about speaking out about the Olympics. They're just hating him right now. But
gotta silence him.
Leafs fans, NHL fans, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know what you think the NHL should do to fix the All-Star Game. If you think any of the ideas we propose were good, or if we are just absolute buffoons throwing around the ideas that we did, let us know in the comments below. We look forward to seeing you guys in videos in the near future. Keep believing.
Signing off.